Right, good day, class. So for today, we are going to review first our plotting material. So before we go dwell into our transformations lesson, the reason why we are going to review, pretty straightforward. In order for us to do the transformations correctly, we need to first know how to be able to plot our points and where they fall under the grid, right? So for today's objective, be able to identify the different parts of a coordinate plane and how to graph a coordinate pair, be able to identify the three rigid motions and give an example for each motion, right? So if you guys can be on this side of your handout, so the first side with the coordinate system review. Okay, so coordinate system, what's another word for a coordinate system that you guys might be familiar with?
Is it Cartesian?
Not Cartesian, but I get where you're going. That's the more formal term, right? Cartesian plane. It's also the coordinate plane, right? The coordinate plane. And then your horizontal number line, so the one running from left to right, what would that line be? Right? That is your x-axis. So go ahead. Make sure you guys are labeling your x-axis. Okay? If that's my x-axis, what's my vertical?
Y.
Right? That would be my y-axis. And where these two lines meet, or where they intersect, what would we refer that to? That is our origin, and it's also 0, 0. Or 0, 0. Okay. When we're dealing right, with this, there's 4 quadrants. When you're counting the quadrants, which way are we going to go? Are we go counterclockwise or are we going to go clockwise? Right, we're going to start counterclockwise. And you start with the 1 on the right-hand corner. That's going to be our quadrant 1. And you move counterclockwise. Quadrant 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Each point on the graph itself has a set of ordered pairs. What's the name for the ordered pairs? Or another word for ordered pairs? Right? Coordinates. So, and they're set up in the form of x, y. An easy way to remember how that is, think about the alphabet. X always comes before y. So even when you're plotting the points, you're always going to look for the x first, and then move up or down to your y. Any questions so far for the review? So now just a little bit of practice, graphing, and identifying where our coordinates land. So for the first one, you're going to graph your point 5, 2. When you graph that coordinate, what quadrant do you see it lying in? Right? The first one. Because it would land right there. Right? What about the second point?
4.
Quadrant 4. And the third one?
3.
Lands on 3. Pretty straightforward, to the point, right? Okay, so now, how do you guys feel about the coordinate grid or the coordinate plane? Right? Feel comfortable using it?
Yes.
Right? So the next part that we're gonna go is into our rigid motions, or how they're referred to as transformations. Right? When you think of these terms that you see up here, what are some of the things that you guys imagine? So pre-image. What do you guys think pre-image is? Or what do you guys think of when you see the word pre-image? Right? Before. Right, so pre indicating that before something for that image, right? So you guys can fill in real quickly. And the middle column, and you guys can take a few minutes and fill in what you guys think is the definition for those vocab words. Yeah. So you have the translation here. Just try and do your best to give yours. Oh. That would be what we would used to, right? But in this case, it's not going to be. That's a good way to think about it, but not necessarily. I'll leave it here. But just do your best. Just give me an idea as to what you guys think. I want to see kind of what relationship you guys have with these words and how you guys connect them. Right. So as you guys mentioned before, when we were talking about pre-image, you guys, the key word that was sticking out for you guys was the beginning, the prefix pre, meaning before, right? Anything else that you guys identify or you guys think would be? Okay, right? So what about for image? What indicators do you guys get for image? Yes.
Picture.
Right, it's a picture. Right, so you guys are, that's one good way to identify image as. What about transformation?
A change.
Right, so transformation, when we're thinking of transformations outside of the classroom, we're thinking about changes happening, right? Okay, that's a good one. Translation. What's some words or things that you guys do when you guys think of translation?
It's a different manner of saying something.
Right, a different manner of saying something. Anything else with translation that you guys might think of?
Think of derive.
What was that?
Derive. Like you derive meaning and you try to make more meaning with it.
Right, deriving meaning. Okay. Reflection. What's something you guys always think of in reflection?
Mirror.
Right? Mirror. Mirrors are always good reflectors, right? Every once in a while, you see girls, whenever they see a mirror, they always stop by, take a quick look, make sure everything's right.
Only
Boys,
girls?
boys too.
A lot of boys are starting to do that too, right?
Really looks at you.
What about rotation?
A turn?
So a turn's a good one. Okay. And the last one, congruent. Congruent, not a typical word you guys see all the time, right? This is, what was that?
Touching.
Okay. So touching. Okay. So those are good associations that you guys have come up with for these terms. Some of those are pretty spot on into what they mean when we're doing these transformations. Our main transformations are down here: translation, reflection, and rotation. We'll get into those in a bit. But for pre-image, as you guys mentioned, it is something before. So in the case of transformations, it's your original image. So the image that happens before your transformations, right? So if you guys notice on your handout, there's a third column. In that third column, we're going to fill in the definitions for them that most easily we'll be able to remember as a class, right? So when you ever see the word pre-image in a problem, you're automatically going to assume that it's the original image that they're referring to. Okay? The image, it is the picture. It is the picture that you guys get after you do the transformation. So whether it be translation, reflection, or rotation, the image is going to be what happened, or the image you get after you do that transformation. Okay? And the transformation, as you guys said, it is a change. In this case, what are we changing? We're going to be changing the pre-image. So the way the pre-image is going to be changed is going to be according to these three transformations, right? Okay? And translation. So the way we're used to here in translation is when you go from one language to the other, one meaning to the other. In this case, the key word we're going to be using for translation is going to be sliding. Sliding or movement. Because when we go over it, you'll see that when you translate an image, you're simply sliding it down or up and moving it left or right. So when you think of translation, think about sliding. It's simple motions that just move us up and down, left or right. Reflection, probably the best, or the dead giveaway, right? It is mirror. In this case, it's the mirror image you get, whether or when you reflect it over a certain point, over a certain line. So there's three main reflections for that. So mirror, you guys can keep mirror as your term for reflection. That's the best way to remember it. There's three reflections that come with it. When you do it across the x-axis, and then across the y, and the last one is across y equals x. Okay? We'll touch up on those when we get to reflection, how each one is going to affect our pre-image and how our new image would look like. Right? Rotation, Same turning, because you turn it either clockwise or counterclockwise according to the degrees that we get. So you guys can keep turn for your keyword for rotation. The main rotation that you guys will see, or the most popular one, is when you're turning about the origin. And in this case, what is our origin? Right, 0, 0. Okay. And do you guys remember how we numbered our coordinate system or our quadrants? Right? Remember how we went counterclockwise to number them? Same thing happens when you're doing degrees and rotations. If they tell you it's 90 degrees positive, you're going to go counterclockwise. And if you go clockwise, you're going to be going negative degrees. Right? So just something to look forward to when we get to that point. And congruent, which is the oddball of all those, right? But congruent, when we're talking in these terms, is basically telling us it's the same shape. So after any of these transformations, we end up getting the same shape. And what that means, we have the same sides, we have the same angles, we haven't changed anything on the pre-image. All we've done basically is change its location, right? We're not going to mess with its sides. That's for a different transformation that we'll get into next time. Okay? Any questions with the vocab that we'll be covering through this unit? Okay. So the first one that we're going to practice So the first transformation that we're going to look over is our translations. Translations are one of the simple ones because, as mentioned, we're just sliding down or up, left to right. When you see a translation rule, one way that it could be written is as T, T referring that it's a transformation of it's a translation. The transformation you're using is a translation. And then A and B are what you're going to do to your X and Y. So if you guys see translation AB of XY, the way you would write that down, or how your new equation for it is going to be X plus A, comma, Y plus B. That's how we'll be able to get our new points after the transformation. So those two ways, we'll get into the habit of going back and forth between them. So, any questions with that? So keep in mind X and A affects X, B affects Y. So same thing with the alphabet. A becomes for B, so it affects X, and then B is going to affect Y. And then keep a close look at on your signs. Just because it's positive on there doesn't mean it's always going to be adding to it. You have to be careful. If the A or the B turn out to be negative numbers, we're going to be subtracting. So we're going to do an example for both of those, so that way you guys can see how it's going to be affecting both of those points in each direction, okay? So for your first one, I want you guys to use the rule, right? So your transformation is 2, 2, or the translation of 2, 2. How would we write that out? So that way you guys can better see what your new coordinates would be. So what would be the expanded form of this rule? Was that
Is it 4+2?
right? It would be 4 plus 2,
Oh.
right? Remember, this is our original x, and this is our a. So coming back to here, right? And what's going to be my y value?
Like,
After that translation, what are our new coordinates?
6, 7,
6, 7. Okay? And when you plot these in to your graph, your original point, 4, 5, we'll call it point A, right? When you do the point or the coordinate after the translation, you're going to make sure to indicate it, put a prime next to it. That little prime indicates to whoever's looking at this graph that you have translated the image over. Okay. Now for our negative example, translate the points -1, comma, -2. Okay, so take a couple seconds. And what's going to be our extended equation for this, our extended coordinates?
-3 plus -4.
Right, -3. Why did you go with negative or plus?
That's it. Formula?
Well, why'd you change this to a plus? Negative, negative. What happens when you have two negatives next to each other? Right? Negative times a negative makes it a positive, right? And then what's our second one? 7. Am I going to add or subtract 2 from it? Subtract, because my transformation is negative here, I got to make sure that this value is also negative. So make sure you guys always carry those negative signs with it. Right? We did carry it in this one, but because we had the double negatives next to each other, they changed it into a positive. Okay? So our new values,
Why do you have a double negative?
what was that?
Why do you have a double negative?
Yeah, got that. Thank you. Why?
It's still adding, right? And you're just adding.
It's plus, minus.
So
Yeah.
it's 4.
Right. So it would be plus -4. My apologies there. I was thinking of multiplying the two numbers together. Right. So we would still add that extra negative. Thank you for pointing that out. So our new point would be -4, comma 5. So when you plot it, right, you'll see that it was shifted to the left 1 and then down 2. So you guys see how that movement happens? So just a quick summary. Negatives, if you're on the X, they're going to change it to the left. Negatives on the Y are going to make it drop. Positives on the X make it move to the right. And positives on the Y make it move to the top. So similar with how our coordinate plane is set up. negative x values on the left, positive x values on the right. Positive y's up top and positive y's down low. Good. Any further questions? Okay. So for today, that's all we could do. We'll continue. We'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. If you guys have any questions, feel free to stay and ask. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.